Well, coming up, NBL CEO David Stevenson joins us to talk expansion and refereeing. And Hammer, what do the Warriors do about Klay?
And we're talking to D. Ruck, and of course he wants to talk about the Clippers and Harden's success. And we talk about LeBron and Letao.
All right, let's get into it.
This is The Basketball Show with Shane the Hammer Heel. What they gonna say next?
Great to be with you for another week, all thanks to Code Sports, Boost Mobile and the Throwback store. Hammer, what's happening? We had a great response to the show last week and we have plenty coming up again this week.
Yeah, it's a great time of year, Jojo, because we know it's getting to the money time of the NBL. We love that. A lot of pressure on a lot of teams there. And the NBA, we're heading to that All-Star game. I don't care about the All-Star game, but what we know happens after the All-Star game is it gets to money time and teams start getting serious. So it's a good time of year.
Love it. Coming to the end of the trade window as well. Plenty happening. Let's kick things off with our starting five. Anthony Lamb, Hammer, he's been a revelation for the Breakers since he joined them this season, but he's out for the rest of the campaign with an Achilles injury. Obviously not something you ever want to see, so we wish him all the best. The Breakers, though, they're in the hot seat, them and the Hawks. They have 4 games left, but given the impact that Lamb has had, do you see them making the play-in and having a decent run in the playoffs without him?
Well, it's going to be tough, Jojo. It's I rated him the second best player in the league. I think he's going to be highly recruited from, most of the other NBL teams. My first reaction is no, they can't. But then they went on and beat the Perth Wildcats. I mean, he was injured in that first quarter. They continue to play well. Other players they've got there can stand up. Guys like Cheatham that now will get more usage. McDowell White, I think he's been great since he's come back from injury. So I think they've got the talent to be able to get it done. It's still going to be a tough ask for them, and really disappointed that Anthony Lamb is going to be out for this, probably what will end up being a year.
Yeah, hopefully he can fully recover and we see him back out on the court because he really has been great to watch this season. You mentioned the Wildcats. Let's just take a look at their run home. They've got the Taipans, Hawks and Jack Jumpers. 1 win will secure them a top 2 finish. We can pretty much guarantee that will happen. But they did stumble against the Breakers. What did you make of their performance, and are you concerned for them at all?
Well, I've got more question marks now than what I did a couple of weeks ago. They've lost their last 2 home games, one against the Hawks and then against New Zealand, 2 teams that are trying to make the top 4. And what both teams did is they took out Bryce Cotton. And this is sort of takes you back to the start of the season. If Bryce isn't firing, then do they have the pieces? Well, I think they've got the pieces, but for whatever reason, they haven't been able to pull it together to be able to win games when Bryce is down against competing teams. This has got to be a little bit of a worry. Maybe it's the slap in the face of reality for them to be able to fire up. We know how great Bryce is, so maybe he's just not down in the playoffs.
Potentially one of those poke the bear situations and he absolutely explodes come the playoffs. The Hawks, you mentioned they've been flying recently. They're up to 4th. They've won 3 in a row. They have some really promising young talent. Lockie Olbrich is one of those. His stats don't necessarily tell the story. He's just a workhorse for them. He gives 110% every single time he's out there. What have you made of his first season in the league?
I absolutely love him. I get so much joy watching him play. And don't worry about the stats. This guy's going to play in the NBA. He's going to be an NBA player. I think he's a future boomer. His energy that he plays with for his size, his mobility to be able to run the lanes, his second effort going after boards, his defensive stances. I think he's got some upside at the offensive end as well. I love everything about him. And he's only just still so young. He's going to continue to grow his game and his confidence and everything that he does. He's going to be a star. I'm surprised there hasn't been more spoken about his upside, and really excited to watch his career develop.
From a media point of view as well, I must say he's excellent to speak to. Really, very confident in the way that he sort of carries himself, which is always great to see. Something else that I also didn't realise, which I should have, but he's an Adelaide boy. So just another reason that SA is so great, Hammer.
And you know, the great thing about South Australians, the best South Australians, always leave, Joe. No doubt about that. I used to tell Joe Ingles that all the time.
All right, come on now.
God
We
love
always
him.
go back there at some point. Let's talk NBA because the big scores keep on coming. This time, Steph Curry with a 60-piece. Shout out to Director Dave as well today because he's got his Warriors jacket on, which I loved. But watching Steph, what have you made of how he's been playing recently? It feels like he's just reminding everybody that he and the Warriors aren't quite done.
Well, it was almost like he was a little bit down. He was struggling a little bit. And then some of these other players, Jalen Brunson, Doncic, these guys get big scores. And then all of a sudden, then Steph pipes up for 60, if you don't mind. Let's not forget that he's the all-time leader in three-point made baskets by a long shot. And he's got a lot of great basketball left in him. And I just think that he probably needs a few younger players around him. I think Draymond Green's been fantastic since he came back from injury, and that's probably helped Steph a little bit as well. So watch this space with the Warriors and what they do.
I want to stick with the Warriors. Klay Thompson has been benched at the latter stage of games recently. The trade window is coming to a close. If you are the Warriors GM, who are you trading, Klay or Draymond?
Well, I don't think you'd be trading Draymond right now. I think he's come back. He's played really well. His attitude's been good, and I think he complements Steph so well. I mean, there's a loyalty factor that probably isn't always there in the NBA. That would be the only thing holding back Klay Thompson because I think he's run his race there. He looks stale. I think he needs a change for his own career. Him going to a new club, maybe that sparks a new energy for him and a new lease of life to be able to finish somewhere else. But right now, his impact on the Warriors is negligent, and for what he gets paid, I think he's got to go.
Be interesting to see what happens because I'm pretty sure it was only a couple of months ago that we said the same thing about Draymond, and here we are.
Yeah, that's true. But Draymond was dealing with different issues, wasn't he? I mean, he's dealing with all the things that he went through. Had a good time on the sideline, and he's come back refreshed. But I think the fact that he complements Steph is why you would keep him. Klay doesn't complement Steph. Steph and Draymond complement Klay. He's somebody that is on the end of all those plays where he's going to get his catch and shoots. He very rarely dribbles the ball. He's not creating for other people, so he doesn't make anyone else better. I think he's got to go, and I think the Warriors need somebody younger to be able to come in to be able to make something happen and try and grow and get that next phase for the Warriors as well.
5. Shouting that on social media. He even reposted it to his story. What? Crawford with a circus shot!
Jordan Crawford with the slick moves. He's kicking off our Hoops highlights thanks to Boost Mobile.
4. Najee. And Dice.
Okay,
oh,
Dyson!
What a finish! You would think when Jose's in the neighborhood, they'd be on alert.
I like this. I like this.
3.
Underrated part of that as Mitchell now gets to the foul line. He'll scoop it off the backboard to himself. Do you believe that? This.
Well, I gotta find some way.
The C's part of the lane was wide.
2.
Young guys on this team, they were cooking. Oh, Green! Oh, Green! Behind the back and then rolls high above the 20.
Jalen Green throwing it down with authority. He is no stranger to a highlight reel.
1.
Here he comes. Inside the wrap. And the buzzer beater. He's done it. Wrap wins the game and the championship.
Austin Rapp with the game-winning dagger for Victoria. Those are your Boost Mobile Hoops highlights. Time for points made with former NBL MVP Derek Rucker. All right, guys, we'll get straight to it. The Clippers, they've won 9 of their last 10. They're up to 3rd in the West. D, are they genuine contenders this year?
Without a doubt, Joe, and I know this is going to drive you crazy, Hammer, but James Harden has made them a real championship threat. I never thought this would be the case, but it's not all about him. He's playing a major role. He's playing a role that I didn't think he could do and help a team get to this level. But primarily, if Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook, and they're getting Zubats back soon, if those guys can maintain health, Shane, they're a really tough team to beat. Defensively, they're better than you think they are. And they've got two guys in George and Kawhi that can get you 30 or 40 each night. Harden's getting, he's getting his 21, 22, 7 assists, a few rebounds. He's just playing really good basketball. You got to give him credit, right?
You got to give him credit. I'm not a fan of Harden. I don't like him, but he's done well. I like the fact that Kawhi Leonard's the one that has been able to pick up his game. Harden's been able to do a good job of being able to include him and give him enough rope to be able to go and do that work. So credit where it's due. But are they really a team that can compete? Are they a team that when it gets to the playoffs and gets to, a game 7, that they're going to be able to come through? Because a lot of the times what we've seen with Harden is then he reverts back to his old ways, and that's when he starts to hurt himself. So I'm going to be convinced when he starts winning game 7s against good teams.
But that's a good point. So realistically, I see two issues. One is Denver, okay? And how is Denver handling this second season after winning the championship? Sometimes they look good. Sometimes they look like they're going through the motions. I think it's a matter of whether or not they can ramp it up in the back half of the season and show that they're a true championship team again. And then the other thing is, like you said, can PG, can Harden, can they perform in the playoffs? And that's going to be the big question mark. And it's been something that's plagued those guys throughout their career. The West is going to be really interesting. I don't see any other real contenders, Joe, outside of those two.
It will be interesting, but as you know, AllStar Weekend, it's coming up. This is where we really find out what is happening with these teams. As you say, can they ramp it up? So a little too early to tell, I feel like. LeBron James and the Knicks towel. Brian Windhorst has gone on a big spiel about it being a conspiracy theory. Was he sending a subliminal message to the Lakers, draping the Knicks towel over his shoulders? Would either of you, in your playing days, have sort of donned an opposition team's towel?
Not a chance. Not a chance at all. I don't understand why he would even do this. And if he tries to hit us with, I wasn't aware, it was a Knicks towel, blah, 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 this coming from a guy who is aware of everything. Okay? So don't even try and hit us with that excuse. You knew exactly what you were doing. You've always been infatuated with New York. You had a chance to go there many years ago. You made the right choice to go to Miami instead. But Shane, I'm sure there are some things going on involving Bronny, other teams in the league, and LeBron. And it's not supposed to happen. The NBA wants you to think everything is above board. There's never any underhanded stuff going on. But we know for a fact that many little wink wink deals go on. And LeBron is pressing the issue right now with the Lakers because this is all about Bronny. Don't even get it twisted. Yeah, he wants to win a championship this season, but it's also about the opportunity to play with his son down the road.
Mate, nothing happens by chance with LeBron. I mean, he's almost psychopath with the way he wants to plan things and exactly what he's going to do. He's a serial planner for thinking ahead. He's sending a message to the Los Angeles Lakers. That's exactly what he's doing. This has got nothing to do with New York. Nothing to do with New York at all. It's just his own insecurity and wants to be talked about by everybody by sending a message to the Lakers about what his next plans are going to be. He keeps them insecure. Oh, don't leave. Oh, don't leave. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? That's the way he lives his life. And it blows me away with someone as much success as what he's had for as long as he has, that he can waste so much time and energy with these sort of mind games with his employer and wanting people to start to speculate about what he's doing. Make no mistake, this is nothing about anything else about him sending a message to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Does that not suggest to you that everything that he is doing and has done throughout his career works then?
Works.
It does work.
He wants to win a championship this year. How can you say it works? Like him as a GM, he wants to be able to recruit everybody to his own team. We know that hasn't worked. Now he blames everybody else that it hasn't worked. Now he's had success along the way. He's made some good decisions. He's been able to load his teams by manipulating the system at different teams throughout his career, and he has had success at different stages. But he's not having success now. And I think his mindset's changed of the way he used to be able to manipulate it to get to his teams, because now he's earned more power where he's able to demand more things and build his own team by actually handpicking some of those things rather than the general managers and the teams doing it. D.
Well, if you look at it, Hammer, though, when he went to Miami, Pat Riley ran that show. One of the reasons he
Exactly.
left, LeBron left, was because he couldn't have the influence that he wanted. When he went to Cleveland, he ran the show, got himself a championship, full credit. Went to the Lakers, he doesn't necessarily run the show. The Buss family and Jeannie Buss is like, yo, we've been getting down well for a very long time here, LeBron. You do not get the same type of power here. So if you want to play your little games, that's all fine. But we ultimately have the final say here. Joe, could you imagine if there was a unisex league here in Australia, how Hammer would be manipulating situations so that he and Shyla could play together down the road?
I'd be if I could play with my dad, so I fully understand. LeBron's calculated ways are clearly working because we are talking about him right now. That's all I will say. Joel Embiid, all right, out for an extended period of time. He's had surgery on his knee. He'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks' time. How serious is this for, one, the 76ers, and two, for his chances of going back-to-back in the MVP race?
The MVP race is done, and this injury really hurt me, Shane, because we've watched Embiid since he was a teenager, and you have to love what he's done in terms of who he is as a person, the way he plays the game, and the level that he plays the game with. Although I knock him over the head for always dodging the Nuggets, which looks weird, but now it's kind of been justified that he truly was injured. So that's a bit weird. This injury was disheartening, much like Anthony Lamb's injury here in the NBL. It's one of those that you're just like, damn, this really sucks. And it's ruined the Sixers season. Like, they can still be competitive. Is he going to come back? I think we've seen how he comes back from injuries. It's not well. He's a big guy. It takes him a lot of time. Kendrick Perkins said that they probably need to shut him down for the rest of the season. It's rare I agree with that guy, but I think I see his point. It might be a wrap for the Sixers and Embiid this season.
Well, there's no way we can compare an Achilles rupture to a meniscus that they need to be able to fix. I mean, two totally different injuries. They've got a choice here. You're not wiped out for the season for a meniscus at this stage of the season. But I agree with Derek that with his size and the way he has come back, that they probably will shut him down. They're more on the conservative side in the NBA. If this was an NBL, if he was playing in the NBL, you'd get him going and then you'd get him ready and you'd play. But they're talking big business. They play the long game with somebody like Embiid. If he is out for the season, they do shut him down, then it's impossible for them to win a championship with the squad they've got, which is disappointing because I really like what Nick Nurse had done and the way he was using his players and the way they were actually competing with all of the big name teams.
All right, before I let you go, Derek, I'm talking NBL. The Kings and Hawks this weekend. Hammer, you said off camera that this is the biggest game of the round, remembering there are only 2 rounds to go in the regular season. Talk to me, Hammer, why is this game the big one for you?
Well, you just have to look on the ladder about how big it is and how critical it is for the Sydney Kings especially. They must win this game. They've got the bye in the last round. They play Southeast Melbourne. They'll win that game. We know that. But with how up and down that the Sydney Kings have been, and there's trouble in Sydney. You can just tell there's trouble in Sydney across the board for the Kings. And how are they going to come out? Are they going to come out with some passion and some energy? We haven't seen that very often for a team that is talented as what they are. They very rarely play to their potential. but they need to in this game because they're playing against their rivals, the Hawks, who are playing great basketball, the underdog, and probably look the complete opposite because Tatum's done a great job of really molding that team. They look like they're playing together. They're playing for the coach. They're inspired right now, and they've already beaten the Sydney Kings in Sydney only last month. So this is going to be a really intriguing game and a flip of the coin depending on how the Kings come out.
Well, the Kings are unpredictable and they're volatile, which means, Shane, they have the potential to put out great performances. And I wouldn't be surprised if we got one on Sunday, but I wouldn't be betting on it either. So you're right. This is a massive game. They have to stand up right now. So often we talk about identity and a team showing you who they are. We have to throw that out now. We don't know who the Sydney Kings are. They just have to try and win games as best they can. The identity stuff, all that's out the window, and it's game by game for them. And hopefully, they can kind of backdoor themselves into a deep run into the playoffs. I'm not predicting it to happen, but they have so much talent. Like you said, anything's possible with that crew.
Very quickly, one word from both of you. Who wins? Hammer?
I think Sydney will probably win.
Sydney, I think Jalen Adams now is going into domination mode. He's going to win that game for them.
Beautiful. Derek, love your work. Thank you so much. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll catch you in a couple of weeks.
All right, guys, be good.
All right, time to go in depth now with NBL CEO David Stevenson. David, so great to have you on the basketball show. Really appreciate the time. You're coming towards the end of your first season in the role. When you took over, what was sort of what you would say you would envisage as a successful first season? What were the goals that you set?
Yeah, firstly, thanks for having me on, Joe and Shane. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I appreciate everything you do for our sport and for our league. But, it's sort of interesting when you think about that question at the start of the season. You'd hope that we'd continue to have a fantastic on-court product. You wanted the growth to be there and fans to connect it. And ultimately, you wanted to come to the end of the season and still have, pretty much most teams in contention, and touch wood, that's happened so far. So really thrilled with this year.
What are the things that have surprised you about the league, mate? And first of all, well done on everything, not only you're doing, but also everybody at head office. The league continues to go strength to strength. But what are the things that have surprised you once you've got your feet wet a little bit and around the league in a lot of games?
Yeah, look, firstly, it's just how powerful our league and our sport is for families, to be able to have a couple of hours for families to come in and out. It's very wholesome, doesn't get impacted by the weather. It's high entertainment, great on-court standard. So that's been a surprise. I've been a fan for many years. So to be able to see that firsthand and that passion and love in every stadium has been impressive. But it's also been, I've been surprised by the opportunities ahead. As much as we feel proud about the growth we've got, we're the best part of 30% up in broadcast, 15% up in attendance. Even last round we had over 95% capacity in stadiums, so we're almost sold out every game. But it's really the opportunity ahead, and I feel like we're only scratching the surface of what the league can be for many years to come.
I'm glad you talked about opportunities ahead, because expansion, it's one of those things that people are always talking about. The Gold Coast, Newcastle are a couple of cities that are mentioned in that conversation. Can you give us any insight into where you're at with that at the moment, and I suppose whether the pool is big enough for two teams in the near future?
Yeah, great question, Joe. I think what we've learned with the Phoenix, and in particular the Jack Jumpers, is that we want to make sure that when we expand strongly. And we want to make sure that from day one, those teams are competitive and successful. And to think about the Jack Jumpers making the finals every year for their first couple of years, and every single game they've ever played to be a sellout, and 2,000 people on the waiting list. It's incredible. So therefore, when we look forward to other expansion opportunities, there's always three pillars that we want to make sure that we get right. One is strong fan support, two is strong corporate support, and third is government support, particularly from an infrastructure point of view, both at the playing venues but also training. And so I think what we've really come to the conclusion is we won't expand unless we've got all those three boxes ticked. If you look specifically at markets and Gold Coast, I don't know, Shane, you had some great times on the coast there. But, what we've learnt from the Blitz this year, over 20,000 people went along to those games. And even the level of participation in that market. I think when we had the Blaze there, there was 1,000 local players. Today, there's over 10,000. So that's an obvious market for us. We're in good conversations in probably half a dozen cities. You mentioned Newcastle, Joe, but Darwin's another one, Canberra, and then clearly domestic's our focus, but international is also opportunities. In our recent announcement with Japan that at some point down the track we'd love to see some more international expansion.
I mean, what about Sydney? We know there's a block out until 2026, but with your history in the AFL, the success of rivalries in South Australia, now in Queensland and obviously in Western Australia as well, and the success, a second team in Sydney would be unbelievable. And would you see a second team in Sydney playing out of the same venue, or would it be more in the eastern suburbs or the city like it used to be back in the day?
Yeah, we think that those market rivalries are absolutely critical. When you look at Melbourne, the throwdown, you see the Phoenix and United playing, it just builds this great rivalry. And as you said, I certainly experienced that at the AFL. So we think there's an amazing opportunity for another team in Sydney down the track. We do want to make sure that, again, we're thoughtful with where that goes. I think having a downtown venue would be amazing, but today there's not a lot of those that are suitable. And obviously Qudos Bank Arena is our biggest venue, would make sense to also utilise that. So we haven't landed on a firm position of what that looks like, but I do know that when the time is right and we get that second team in there, it'll create an incredible rivalry, and I think that'll almost become the epicenter of basketball in the country.
Hammer kind of alluded to it there, but you've worked with the AFL, the Bulldogs, and Nike as well. From your experience, what would you say that the NBL needs to do in order to continue to move up, I suppose, and reach the benchmark that those are setting?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges we've got is we're a sport that's fragmented. We run the men's league, we've got Basketball Australia run the women's league. They do participation and the national teams. But the states are pretty strong as well. And then you've got the NBA coming in and doing things here, plus a whole lot of private businesses. So that's different than what the AFL was, where in essence that whole ecosystem is led through one organisation. So a big focus for me in the first 12 months has been, how do we unify the sport? So how do we work closely with Basketball Australia, and Matt and the team there have been fantastic partners. So far, we're having a lot of great conversations and partnership with the NBA. So how do we unify the sport so that, when that 8-year-old girl who might be playing out at Penrith, that she has a pretty unique experience that's seamless between playing at her local association, going along to a Kings game, watching an NBA game on TV, and that ultimately she has a great experience with basketball. And I think if we can unify the sport, I think we'll be unstoppable.
Mate, I want to talk about referees. It's been spoken about a lot of late. What's your thoughts on it? How do you take it to another level? It seems from the outside that the players have continually gone to another level, and the professionalism and the referees may be lagging a little bit behind with some of those things. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, look, firstly, I'd say in every sports league I've ever been a part of, referees and umpires always come under criticism. That's kind of the nature of a sport. And frankly, part of that helps with a little bit of the theatre and the entertainment proposition. But it's a really difficult job. And I think if you look at the stats that we measure, every single call that they make or don't make, the video reviews that we do after every game, the referees get that within half an hour at the end of the game, and they're the worst critics of themselves, actually. But I think they do a fantastic job. We fully support them. And when you look at those stats, they're the best part of high 80s, low 90s in their accuracy. And so when you compare that to, all the other components in our league, I don't think any player is shooting 90% on a regular basis, or any coach is getting 90% of their calls right, or frankly, any administrators making 90% of the right decisions. So I think overall they're doing a great job, but we think we can do more. And so, I feel really proud. We've got 4 full-time referees now, so we've made a commitment and the investment in that. We brought out a referee who came out of the G League and on the NBA path last year, and he's been a great addition to the team. But we're always looking for ways of supporting them with more resources, more information, and clearly that dialogue that they have with players and coaches is a really important part of that. And as long as that continues and two-way communication in a respectful way, I think it's one of the greatest things about sport. So in summary, we feel great about the referees, but they're not perfect and they're human and they'll make some mistakes along the way, as we all do. But we'll continue to find ways to support them to help elevate their game as the rest of the league has.
Mate, last one for me. I just wanted to circle back something you said about the expansion and one of the recent announcements about Japan and the relationship there. Is it possible that we could have a team from overseas in our league at any time soon? Because to me, that would be something that would be very, very special, especially with the eyeballs from overseas as well.
Yeah, look, I think the success of the Breakers has been a great example for us to look at what can happen on court, and you can see the success that New Zealand's had on the world stage. I think a part of that has been due to many of the players being involved in the NBL. The current FIBA regulations preclude us from having a team outside of Australia and New Zealand in our league, and so that's an obvious barrier that we've got to work our way through. But absolutely is part of the plan that teams playing out of Asia, and that makes a lot of sense because of the time zones that you've got are important. The role that Australian basketball has in Asia, both on and off court, and we're viewed very strongly in that regard. But thirdly, was to your point, Shane, is just the eyeballs. There's 120 million people in Japan, and when you look at how the role of basketball in that culture and how many of them love it, you compare that to the 26 million in Australia, and that's got to scream opportunity. And when you start to look at the other countries around Asia, which I've spent a lot of time with in my Nike days, basketball is such a passion in those markets. So tapping into those can only be a great thing. And again, we won't expand just for the sake of it, but I think there's absolutely a world down the track where we're going to have teams coming in from Asia.
One more from me as well, David, before you go. The Next Stars program has also obviously increased eyeballs on the league. A huge year for the current crop, especially the likes of AllStar. Can you give us, again, any insight into what the program looks like moving forward and whether you've actually locked in any players for next year?
Yeah, look, I think full credit to the team who've been working on this over a number of years. I mean, it's a phenomenal program. As you said, think about 8 Next Stars this year, the chance of 2, 3, 4 first rounders in the NBA draft is incredible. And, AllStar right up there in the conversation for number 1. And to see people like Mantis in New Zealand starting, Alex Tui, our local guys had a great run. And then who knows what Rucker could be next year. We feel like we've got a great foundation, but you know what? The thing is every year you start again from scratch. And so the 8 we've got this year, we're proud about, but the team are working around the clock to make sure that next year's crop become even bigger and better. And I think based on the success that we're seeing this year and the experiences those players are having, and hopefully that translates to the NBA draft in a couple of months, that we'll see players and agents and leagues around the world just think about, hey, the best path for them is to come via the NBL, and I think it's been a great springboard, and we'll look forward to a few more coming next year.
Well, you're doing a great job, and so's the rest of the team. And as an ex-NBL player, I couldn't be prouder of where the NBL's at, David, and rarely miss a game. We love talking about it as well. So keep up the good work, and hopefully it goes from strength to strength as you're talking about. Well done, and thanks for coming on.
Great.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Joe. Just want to say how much we appreciate all the work that you do for our league and our sport. And your listeners, wish them all the best and can't wait to see you all at a finals game soon.
All right, time to talk SuperCoach NBL with Tom Hirsch. Tom, hello to you. Where are we at with SuperCoach this week?
Well, we are getting down to the absolute business end of the season, Joe. It is semi-finals week in most leagues. That's certainly the case in our league. I take on Derek Rucker this week. Hammer's got Stremple. It's all on the line, and the winners will advance to the grand final for the final round of the season next week. So, Hammer, you struggled a bit in the last round. Wasn't the best score. Luckily, you had the bye, I think. But I think you need to lift your game this week against Stremple. We'll see how you go.
Yeah, but see, I'm a rookie at this game, so, slap me down. But
You keep saying that. I'm not sure I buy that, though.
Or when it's your first year, that means it's a rookie. So just in basketball terms. But I wasn't playing for this week because I didn't play anyone. So I was trying to think 1 week ahead. Is that the way you're supposed to do it?
Fair enough. Yeah. No, fair enough. You're right. If you didn't have a matchup, then you plan ahead and you use your trades smartly that way, hopefully. So I'm looking for big things from you this week then.
So, Tom, give Hammer a hand here. Talk to us about the players that are available and what he should be going for in order to get this win over Stremple.
Absolutely. So there's only 2 teams on the double this week, and that's the Illawarra Hawks and the New Zealand Breakers. The good thing about that is both those teams are very much in contention still for an NBL finals spot, for a play-in spot, and so they will be playing hard and their players will be playing top-notch. No one's going to be rested, for example, which may be the case with some other teams like the Phoenix. Obviously, the downside, Anthony Lamb's Achilles injury, so he's out, but that presents some opportunities for some other New Zealand Breakers to step up. Parker Jackson Cartwright, the obvious name that most people will probably be considering, but Zylan Cheatham has actually been the top scorer over the last couple of rounds across the league. So he's certainly someone you may want to look in to sub in for Lamb if you had Lamb in your lineup like I did. The other options, obviously, from the Hawks, Gary Clark, who's still in fantastic form, and he may be a great option at your forward spot. And then obviously we know what Sam Frolling's been doing for the Hawks. His form's been down a little bit of late, but he's still a great option there. And then the other one from the Hawks you could look at is Tyler Harvey. He's really picked up his play over the last few weeks, 25 Supercoach points over the last few rounds, and he's reasonable value at under 300K as well. So he may be someone you want to consider for that backcourt position.
What about a few sneaky little options for us, mate? And who would you name captain, or who are you naming captain this week?
Haven't quite settled on the captain one yet, but I think it might be one of Gary Clark or Parker Jackson Cartwright. I have to finalise my trades first. It might depend if I bring in Zylan Cheatham or not yet. Plus, I don't know if I want to share that with Ruck, but we'll see where we land. In terms of a couple of better value players, Mango Matiang, another one from the Breakers, obviously got a double this week. He's less than 200K, and he's been pretty good. Had his best game of the season last round with 30 Supercoach points. Not sure you'll get that every game from him, but with Anthony Lamb out as well, he's going to touch the ball a bit more, I think. So he's another one to consider. And then not on the double, but in absolutely sensational form is Ben Ayre from the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Really done a great job as that lead guard, filling in for Gary Brown. He's put up well over 30 Supercoach points over his last 3 games. And obviously the last couple of games for the Phoenix, he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. So he could be another solid option if you need someone as a point of difference.
Well, that is all we've got time for. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks to Code Sports, Boost Mobile, and the Throwback store. Hammer, thank you to you as well as always. I cannot believe we only have 2 more rounds left in the NBL regular season. Where has the time gone?
Yeah, it's just flown. No doubt about that. But big weekend for the Hawkies. Can't wait to see how they respond. Big one on the road and then to the Kings. So it's all happening in the NBL, Joe.
It's going to be great, and we will review it all next week. Catch you then.
This is a co-production by News Corp Australia and Closer Sports.